Mr. Chairman, point of order. Are we going to start this meeting today?
I was trying to find out if my water was roofied. You ready, Matt? All right. Sorry for getting us started late. Some of us are attending a conference next door. Today is September 24, 2025, and it is not 1:30. It is 1:36 p.m., and we are here for the Pensacola Prudhoe Bay Estuary Program Board of Directors meeting. We'll call the meeting to order. Matt, if you'll do roll.
Yes, sir. Chair Wright?
Here.
Vice Chair Moore?
Here.
Mayor Boutwell? Here. Mr. Compton?
Here.
Commissioner Hoffberger? Here. Commissioner Kohler? Here. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Mr. Speed?
Here.
And we do have Councilman Burr and Mr. Norberg absent today, but a quorum is present.
All right, thank you. Do we have any public comment today? Don't all run down at once? Okay. We'll move on to board agenda. Has everyone had time to review the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, just two notes on that. As I indicated to you earlier, we're dropping the Perdido Islands presentation to the next board meeting, as well as the water quality discussion. That will come back at November when Councilman Burr is also here, and we can discuss water quality at that time.
Okay, so item E, right? And, sorry. So we're looking at D and E, which,
Yes, sir. So that is item 6B for the Perdido Islands restoration presentation, and then item 9B for water quality. Both of those will be tabled until November.
I'm sorry, yeah, I marked the wrong one. Okay, perfect. Any other changes to the agenda? All right, we'll accept it as presented. I trust everyone's had opportunity to look at the board minutes for July 30 and August 27. Are there any amendments or changes to the minutes? All right.
Second.
All right, any opposition? All right, seeing none, that moves unanimously. And we'll move on to 6A, Northwest Florida Water Management District's Watersheds Partnership Program.
Yes, sir. We do have Mr. Daryl Boudreau with Northwest Florida Water Management District to talk about the Watersheds Partnership Program. Partnership we're very excited is kicking off.
Good to see you, Daryl.
Good to see y'all. I didn't realize that I was going to be able to do the presentation, so my presentation went from like 2 minutes to 30. So if you want to sit back, get a drink. Nah, it won't. I'm just going to breeze through this because y'all know most of this. So appreciate y'all letting me speak to y'all today. So the Water Management District, back in 1989, the legislature created the Surface Water Improvement Management Plan program, which is basically the guiding document for water management districts. And what that does is each district divides their territory into major watersheds. So for us, it's Perdido, Pensacola, Choctawhatchee, St. Andrew, and the rest to the east. For each of those watersheds, we have a swim plan, which is a very high level. It talks about the high level characteristics of the watershed, its geology, its hydrology, those types of things, and then gets into the impacts that are facing. So we've got stormwater issues, we have septic tank issues, et cetera. And then it will list the types of projects that can be used to address those issues. What it does not do is get into the level of detail where we say in Bayou Tahar, we need to convert septic tanks to sewer because we have a nutrient and bacteria issue. So the goal of the watershed program is to identify a sub-basin in each of those major watersheds and focus on that so that we can get to that next level down and say, in Bayou Tahar, we need to put more stormwater controls in, we need to remove these septic tanks over here, and actually have a funding source to help fund those projects. Because the district does not have the funding each year to fund projects. Most of our project money comes from grants. So better years we have more projects, not so great years we don't. So what we're doing is we're proposing in an LBR to the legislature, $22.5 million to fund the grant program that would fund projects, and then $2.5 million to fund the management of that program. What we are doing is working with estuary programs. We're going to be meeting with each county. We're going to the Regional Planning Council and trying to get the word out before the session starts so that there's this level of awareness, and hopefully you'll be able to support that request. Why are we doing it now? As you all know this, fastest growing state in the U.S., Panhandle has 5 of the fastest growing counties. And with the creation of the estuary programs, there's a lot of momentum to focus on watersheds and really take that step above. The other reason is if we don't want to become a South Florida where it's going to take billions to dig ourselves out of the hole. If we do some investments up front, we can reduce the amount of investment it's going to take to keep our quality of life and avoid becoming South Florida. Not that South Florida's bad, they're just different. So what we're doing is, again, I covered this already, we're going to have public meetings in all the 7 watersheds. And I really should have pulled up the date for ours. It's going to be, I can tell you, it's going to be Santa Rosa County Auditorium. I think it's on the 8th, but I'll verify that with y'all, from 6 to 8. And so what we're going to do there is have a public meeting where we do a little bit more in depth. We're going to have a nice video that avoid me talking in the beginning. You'll see a nice video with clarity. And then we're going to get public input on the subbasins, the draft subbasin prioritization that we've gone through. So what we did is we took our 3 focus areas, water quality, water supply, and habitat restoration, and we developed objective metrics for each one of those, and then scored the subbasins within each watershed. So in those meetings, we'll come in with a list of here's the top 3, 4, 5 subbasins that have been prioritized, and then take input on which one do you think is going to be the most important to focus on. We're also going to be asking, are you aware of any restoration plans that are in those, as a way to try to make sure we're focusing where we can get the biggest bang for the buck, because this is a one-time LBR request, but the goal obviously is to try to get a recurring funding so we can keep this moving. Already talked all about that. This is why I don't like slides. So once we have identified our subbasin, we'll develop a subbasin work plan, which then gets into that detail. It'll say, here's the subbasin, here's the characteristics, here's what are the greatest issues that we need to address, here are the root causes, and then here's the projects that we're funding to address those causes. And we know we're not going to have enough money. Again, $22 million spread over 7 priority sub-watersheds is going to be about $3 million per watershed. It's a start. And our goal is to make sure by going through this prioritization and this public involvement back and forth that where we focus, we're going to have a quick win. We're going to be able to show value for that investment. And then we can go back to the legislature and say, can we keep doing this because we're really having an impact? That's really the goal of this first round. The grant program, once we identify the subbasin, the legislature says, yep, here you go. And hopefully they'll say, you know what, you need 3 times more money than that. Be nice, but it could happen, probably won't. We will then do a call for projects and say, okay, Bayou Tahar, I keep going to Bayou Tahar, Bayou Chico, we can, East Bay. Whichever watershed it is, we'll do a call for projects, have the projects come in, and then, again, that plan will identify both the projects as well as the unmet need that came in. So the next steps, we're doing this right now. We're doing outreach to all the groups, the counties, and then getting feedback. And then once we go through that feedback process, which will be mid-October, we're going to complete that. We're going to start writing these sub-basin plans. And of course, that'll hold off. We'll do the sub-basin plans up to the project part. And then once we have funding, do a call for projects, we'll fill that part in. That's all I have, unless you have any questions, and I appreciate it again.
Have any questions for Daryl?
I just want to make sure I get that date right whenever you get it. So
Yes, sir.
Make sure you get it to us. Is that October 8th?
I believe, I'm 90% sure.
Oh, the pressure's on.
We can make sure it's distributed out to everybody.
Yeah, I won't stand.
Okay.
Although, I could, because I'm just kidding.
Keep pontificating, it's cool.
Huh?
Pontificate, it's great.
Not while I'm trying to read.
Thank you. Thank you, Daryl. All right, we'll move on to staff updates. Matt?
Yeah, if we can get the other slide presentation pulled up.
need to switch it up here. Thank you.
Thank you. While he's doing that, I'll just wish everybody a happy National Estuaries Week. You know, Bailey will talk about some of the programs and opportunities and events that we have going on this week. But this is an annual celebration, always the third week of September every year, really to highlight the natural resources that we get to call home. So please go out and celebrate and enjoy the estuaries that make this region so special. All right. First up, I had to throw in the picture, of course.
The action photo.
Commissioner Wright and I had the opportunity to be up in D.C. a couple of weeks ago to meet with a number of congressional representatives. We're actually pictured here with Congressman Petronas, who spent a good deal of time with us talking about not only the National Estuary Program designation, but some other key priorities for the region. Very fortunate to have great conversations with not only Petronas' office, but Congressman Dunn, Moore, Senator Scott's office, Senator Britt, and Congressman Ezell's office out of Mississippi as well. So the long and short of it is that there is a lot of support from our congressional representatives to help us through the remainder of the National Estuary Program enrollment process. Just as a reminder, we did receive the designation back in December of last year. Our hang-up has been on the administration side for the EPA administrator to formally enroll the estuary program into EPA's National Estuary Program. So we've gotten those commitments to help on the outreach to EPA administration. We also had a conversation with leadership of EPA while we were up there, and it's not been a matter that it's not a priority for them. They've just had a number of other things going on that have been a priority of the EPA administrator, so they anticipate being able to move forward with that enrollment. Question is more on timing, so we're going to keep the pressure on them to help us get through that process. Also, last week, the National Estuary Program Reauthorization Bill, H.R. 3962, did move through the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee. Congressman Petronas is on that committee. Fortunately, we were already included in the bill in that language, but they also added in Mississippi Sound in Mississippi. So that was great progress there. They are a partner of ours. We work with them all the time and looking forward to them moving through the designation process with us. Also had the opportunity to attend the legislative delegation meeting last night over in Santa Rosa County up in Milton. Represented the estuary program, gave our appreciation to Representative Andrade for his support of the estuary program, of our legislative budget requests since he's been in office, as well as articulating the continued need for support moving forward. And I know we're going to talk about legislative priorities here towards the end of the agenda. I forgot there's a picture. It was a very full house last night. And I'm sorry, somehow I jumped on the schedule ahead of Commissioner Smith. I don't know how that worked out, but thanks for the advancement on the schedule. Other updates. Whitney and I are currently going through interviews for the Outreach and Education Program Manager position. We did receive 60 applications, many more than we were expecting, so it's taken some time to get there. We hope to reach a decision here in the next week or so, once we conclude those interviews. The strategic planning process continues to move forward. We have continued to work with ID Group and the rest of the team to build out our primary objectives in the strategic plan. We are in the process of refining those and then starting to work on the action plans. At the November board meeting, we will have session focused on presenting the overall strategic plan concept and engaging with y'all at that point on where we see the organization as a whole going over the next 5 years and set ourselves up for success. Vessel update. Just got word yesterday that the boat is ready to go. It's built over in Louisiana. So we are still working with Yamaha on the partnership opportunity. It does look very likely that they will donate the engine for us. It'll likely be until January before we're able to get that approved as they go through their budgeting process. And then fortunately, Posner Marine is also donating the service of the installation for the engine on the vessel. So we're going to go over to Louisiana at some point in the next couple of weeks, go pick it up, and hopefully by the first part of next year, we'll be ready to rock and roll on the water. And then just my last update is just a reminder, what happened there, is we, third annual Evening for the Estuaries event, our gala, is October 16th, 6 o'clock, Coastal Arts Center of Orange Beach. Please help us get additional attendees to the gala. If everybody can bring 4 people, we will hit our mark of our attendance. And we're looking forward to another great time of celebrating our estuaries, raising funds that go directly back to our programming opportunities. So with that, I think I'm turning it over to Whitney, unless there's any questions. I don't know what happened to the text.
I know. It doesn't like Nanito
fair
Sans, apparently. Looks like we typed it on a typewriter. Lots of things going on. We've been really busy, especially this coming up Sunday. The Gulf Coast Research Lab folks that we partner with, Dr. Darnell, will be over with his team of amazing researchers doing all of the seagrass surveys across Perdido and Pensacola. They're already kicking off things on Sunday, and then Zach is going to be volunteering his time to help us with the trawling survey this year. So we have previously contracted with the Dauphin Island Sea Lab to conduct this monitoring. But I have gotten the blessing from Dr. Ken Heck to continue on this program and us as the lead. And so we're going to be leading this survey annually from here on out, especially once we can conduct it on our own boat. That's going to be exciting. And so we're going to be out there the end of next week collecting juvenile fish in our seagrass beds and taking data and information that we've been collecting for several years prior to add to that data set. And that information was also included in our State of the Bays report. So we're looking forward to that. Hopefully it'll be good weather for us. We continue to do the Pensacola Bay Oyster Restoration Initiative, spat and larval monitoring. I have some exciting pictures to show you on the next slide. But we did get actually a lot of spat settlement on the tiles from the end of August. So August 21st, we went out and saw several oyster spat on tiles across the entire bay system. So we're waiting on official data from that. We are partnering with the Dauphin Island Sea Lab. Dr. Ronnie Baker's lab is leading that effort to process the tiles, and so they're making good progress on that. And then we're partnering with Dr. Amanda Cruteau from University of West Florida to do all of the larval processing, which you'll see is quite the undertaking. There's a lot of live animals in these from our plankton tows that we're doing. Also in a couple weeks, we're going to be doing our last quarter of living shorelines monitoring for our collaborative work that we do with St. Andrew St. Joe Bay Estuary Program and Choctawhatchee Bay Estuary Program. And so we're going to be completing quarter 4 monitoring that first week in October. And then the Living Shoreline Assistance Program has been wildly successful. They've had a lot of interest. They're currently doing site visits and assessments, and they're moving forward with 6 projects in the Perdido Bay watershed. So they're already working on designs for those projects and getting out in the field. So that's been exciting as well. I think they're going to give a more robust update at the November meeting as well. But the left picture is one of the pictures that was taken under the microscope. And so in the middle, that's the bivalve larvae. So that's what we're looking for when we're looking for oysters. We can't specifically say that they're, eastern oyster larvae, because just at that size, it's very hard to speciate them. But look at all the copepods and other things like flying around in the sample. She also sent really interesting ones of brittle stars and other larval fish. So once we have a lot more samples, I'll put together a slide deck of pictures and some interesting stuff that we're finding at sites, but I thought that was really cool. And that is just a tiny, tiny piece of that entire sample. So she has to really filter it all down, and basically she's only measuring a subsample of those water samples. She showed us a picture of just how much biomass is in those samples, and it's crazy. We're only doing a 1-minute tow, and just the amount of life in those samples is incredible. Lots of zooplankton and phytoplankton. But on the right-hand side is our tiles, and you can see the 3 little kind of yellow marks are where the oyster spat are settled. So in amongst the barnacles and other things, we're definitely seeing tiny oysters settling on the tiles, so that's always promising. They're also settling on the pipes and everything else that we have in the water too, so they're around. And then just a quick update on the Carpenter Creek restoration project. We've really been hitting it hard with property owner engagement. All of our team and the Moffett and Nickel team split up into groups the last, 3 weeks? And we've been doing door knocking, so going to businesses and property owners and really just letting them know about the project. They received mailers in the mail, just additional information on the project and how to contact us. And we were really looking for property access. So we were successful in getting several property access agreements signed for data collection for that first kind of segment of the project to inform design. And then there's an upcoming open house that we wanted you guys to be able to share with your constituents. I know that Matt's been in touch with some of you, but this will be Tuesday, October 7th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Bayview Community Center. So this is really targeted for property owners specifically, just to really let them know more about the project. They can come and ask questions, and then we'll have partners there as well that are doing similar efforts. We'll have the Headwaters Carpenter Creek project where people can come ask questions. We'll have a little presentation and have the access agreements there. If people are ready and willing to sign there, we can make that happen there as well. So really targeted at that, but of course the public is also welcome to join us. And then the Living Shoreline Assistance Program, like I said, they've been really busy, kind of going all over the Perdido Bay area, but site assessments and landowner meetings are underway. Project design work, like I said, is ongoing. And then they're really going to be working on permitting these projects, getting those permit applications submitted, reports to homeowners, and then looking for towards project implementation in early 2026. Okay. Does anyone have questions for me before I hand it over to Bailey?
Just real quick on the Living Shoreline, the project was going to be moving into the Pensacola watershed, Pensacola Bay watershed. Is that already off to a good start too?
Yeah, we're not officially rolling it out until the beginning of the year, but we've already had interest from rolling it out in Perdido. We've already done, I think, several site assessments in Pensacola, even though it's not officially, we haven't done official outreach pushing for that, but it will be opening up in January of next year. Mm-hmm. But I think people are already free to apply currently. So it's a kind of a rolling application process, so. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so going back to July, we had the Perdido Islands volunteer planting, and again, this was an effort with Moffett and Nickel, the City of Orange Beach, and the Nature Conservancy. We had a total of 28 volunteers come out, and that's not including all of the wonderful staff from the City of Orange Beach, Moffett and Nickel, the Nature Conservancy, all of our partners that came out to help as well. And we ended up planting about 2,500 native plants. I think a lot of that was switchgrass, and that was along Robinson Island. We had Chloe come out, and she was able to get us some really cool aerial images from our drone, so we were really grateful for that as well. But it was a very successful event. It was also a very hot event, we ended up cutting it a little bit shorter than what we had originally anticipated, but there was a heat advisory that day, and we wanted to make sure that we got our volunteers back off the island and kind of in the planting before that heat advisory went into effect. But we just want to extend gratitude to everyone that made this planting possible. Thank you so much to the City of Orange Beach for helping shuttle people out to the islands. We definitely couldn't have done it without that support. Oh, no, too far. And then another thing that we did is we had the National Oyster Day celebration. So National Oyster Day was August 5th, but we ended up having a celebration August 6th at Redfish Bluefish to coincide with one of their oyster specials that they were having, where they have a lot of locals come out, as well as tourists that are staying by and nearby hotels come out and partake on oysters. We had 51 attendees, and we were partnering with Redfish Bluefish. So they're one of the restaurants that are part of our oyster shell recycling program. So we really wanted to amplify and show off the efforts that we're doing through our oyster shell recycling program by highlighting one of those restaurants. We also had Oyster Corps, our partner that helps us with the oyster shell recycling, come out, as well as Dune Defenders. So they're part of Innisfree, which is the partner that oversees Redfish Bluefish, as well as several other hotel properties on Pensacola Beach. And then we had Florida Sea Grant come out as well. So we were really excited to pull together a lot of our oyster partners that help make the Oyster Restoration Initiative and all of the other projects that we're doing a reality. So it was just a really fun event to kind of celebrate the work that we're doing. And we ended the evening by showing the humble oyster out on the beach, which you can see in the left picture, which was a really lovely evening. So thank you to those that came out and celebrated with us this evening. It was a lot of fun, and we really appreciated having your support. And then this week, as Matt already mentioned, is National Estuaries Week. So you can see we already have one event sold out. That's actually this evening. Just like at National Oyster Day, we have Vertical Oyster Garden building. So that's where we take the recycled oyster shell from the restaurants that we're collecting. And Oyster Corps helps us by drilling holes, and then we have volunteers construct the vogs and put them together. So people can choose to take those vogs home and hang them off their dock to help create oyster habitat, or we stockpile and hold onto the vogs until we're ready to distribute to homeowners. But that is an event that we're having today over at Gary's Brewery and Beer Garden. So this is the first time that they've hosted us for a vog building event, and I know they're really excited about it. We're really excited. So we're already completely full on volunteer registration. We've had people reaching out wanting to get on a wait list, so there's definitely a lot of community support there. This Thursday, we would love to invite all of you to our Community Grant Symposium. So this is where we'll be showing off the work of our recipients that just wrapped up their project. So 2024 to 2025 community grant recipients. Each one will be giving a presentation on their project. There's a total of 6. And then we'll also be announcing the awards of the 2025 to 2026. So we're really excited about that. We're gonna have some light hors d'oeuvres, so we invite you to come out. That'll be at the Bayview Community Center from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. And then on Friday morning, we are working with UF-IFAS to put on an event called Bringing Back the Bayous that they cutely came up with the title, A Learnin' Lunch. So the idea is that they're gonna have coffee and light snacks in the morning during the presentations that are gonna start at 8 a.m. and they're going to wrap up at about 12:30 p.m. and at that time we'll bring in a catered lunch from Publix. So we already have people registered and signed up for this Learnin' Lunch. It's going to be taking place at Bellevue Library. So we're really excited for this and we invite you to come out. It's gonna be on the topic of water quality. So we have several UF-IFAS agents that are going to be coming out and giving topics, presentations on topics such as PFAS, microplastics, Vibrio, and I know I'm forgetting one more. But it'll be a fun morning filled with lots of learning and hopefully some good food. And then from this Friday to Sunday, our staff will be tabling at the Pensacola Seafood Fest right here in downtown. So if you're going by, you should swing by our tent and say hi to us. So we'll be there along with our Oyster Corps partners. So we'll be tabling and showing off our new 2025 State of the Bays report. And that's all I have.
Thank you. You have any questions? Anybody? No? No. I saw your light on, Vernon, so I wasn't sure. Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
All right. We'll move on to action items. We'll move on to approval of the quarterly financial statements for fiscal year 24-25 third quarter. Are there any concerns or questions there?
Move to approve.
All right. Any opposed? All right, that moves unanimously. Fiscal year 25-26 operating budget. I trust everyone's had an opportunity to look at that. Matt, did you have anything to add?
No, sir. As it states in the backup, this is consistent with what was approved back in the July board meeting.
Okay. All right. Is there any opposition to that one? All right, we'll just move that unanimously. Renewal of the Estuary Programs office lease with Empire Partners LLC for an additional one-year term. Are there any questions or concerns about that? Any input? All right.
I would move the approval of that.
All right, any opposed? We'll move that one unanimously as well. On to item D, authorization of executive director to negotiate contract with Johnson, Murmuran and Thompson. I want to say Murian. Murmuran and Thompson Incorporated JMT for the RFQ for P2425-02 Sediment Reduction Prioritization Action Plan. Are there any concerns or questions about that one?
Move approval.
Second. All right, any opposed? All right, that's approved unanimously. Item E, approval of agreement with Escambia County, Florida in the amount of $487,527.40 for the microbial source traction NERDA project. Are there any concerns or questions about that or any staff input? No?
Move the approval of that one, too.
All right, any opposed? That passes unanimously. And item F, approval of an agreement with Escambia County, Florida in the amount of $49,329 for the Noah Bay Watershed Education and Training of the BWET project. Are any concerns about that or questions? All right, seeing none, is there anyone opposed? We'll move that one unanimously as well. And that addresses all the action items. We'll move on to discussion of legislative priorities.
Yes,
Matt?
sir. So as alluded to earlier, of course, the delegation has had the Escambia and Santa Rosa County delegation meetings the last couple of weeks. We're gearing up for session to come, as we've done in years past, looking for board direction on legislative priorities. I've put together this slide and certainly open to additional feedback from the board in terms of where we go. I'd like to request continuation of legislative budget requests as we've had in years past to support our oyster restoration initiative, Carpenter Creek restoration, community grant program, monitoring program, and community outreach and education programming. Just note that I gave a range of $1 million to $1.5 million, working with Representative Andrade's staff on what would be the most feasible ask to submit for this year. Additionally, what I'd recommend is that we support the Water Management District's Watershed Partnership Program, the presentation you heard earlier from Daryl. This is something that we've been working kind of in the background with their staff the last couple of sessions and hope that it can get over the finish line this year. Also look for support of Escambia County's Carpenter Creek acquisition, LBR. That is certainly goes to support the larger restoration work that we are planning for Carpenter Creek. And unfortunately, the bottom one kind of got cut off, but I was looking for general direction from the board on the estuary program's involvement in environmental policy legislation. This is something that we have typically not been involved in past sessions. Every year there is, a number of environmental policies that come up. We're involved in different organizations that have some level of influence, whether that's FAC or Florida local environmental resource agencies. So just looking for general board direction, if that's something that you'd like us to continue to monitor, weigh in on, or just stay clear. Certainly, the policy element has an impact on the larger work that we do, and we haven't really taken a active role in past years. So just looking for some general guidance.
I'll jump in real quick. I'm sorry.
No, you go
You
for
had
it.
your keyed up. I didn't see you.
I'll come up next.
Okay.
Go for it.
I think we have to be careful and judicious when we start talking about getting involved with policy and advocating for legislation one way or the other. However, I think it would be wise for us to do so. I'd be curious to hear from the rest of the board how they think what policy we should create, though, in order to figure out how this board decides if there's legislation that you're aware of that looks like it's moving forward. I don't know how we approach that, whether, it makes sense for you to apprise the board at a meeting of it, and then we discuss it and vote whether or not we want to take a stance on that particular policy or not, and at that point then begin to go advocate for or against a policy. I just want to be careful and make sure that there's not an effort for the program to advocate for or against something unless the board agrees in a majority that makes sense. I wouldn't want anyone to feel like their voice isn't being heard on the board. So I'll open it up. I just think we need to come up with some kind of policy on how we do that.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think, from the get-go, this has been a non-regulatory organization. And I think we stated that in the very beginning when this was all coming together. And it, as Colton alluded to, we kind of have to tiptoe around advocating for one thing or another. I think that we need to discuss what type of, what level we would take it to. We talk a lot in the past. We've seen letters of support for certain projects and things like that, and I would consider something like that, assuming that it was unanimous across the board. If we were able to, take a letter of support to, whoever that may be, to show our support, but I think it's a good discussion point for the board to decide if we're gonna take that route, like you said, what the process looks like, and is it a letter? Is it actually going to, DC like you guys just went and pushing like that, or sending it to our lobbyists to say, hey, we're in favor of this. What can you guys do to help move this forward? There's a lot of different avenues. So being clear as a board, how we approach that is important.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, just a couple thoughts. I guess when I first heard you say this, Matt, I was thinking, looking at the 5 things on the list, I was thinking you were asking for our priorities of projects that we were going to lobby collectively, and I had something come to mind. But I don't mind getting behind things, depending on what they are, because I do think letters from boards help. I know you guys do them in Santa Rosa, I do them regularly, but I think the board should have a majority vote before we do that, obviously. Can I go back to what I was thinking with what you did on oyster restoration? Because this came up and Carpenter's Creek, obviously I'm very supportive of that in Commissioner Hoffberger's district. But one of the projects, and I think I mentioned this to you, Matt, that I've been working on with legislative folks that includes the city as well as the county and Commissioner May's BioChico. And we got about, CHIPS is out there, we've got about $10 million right in there, clean up a lot of really, bad stuff that's in there, and we're seeing some progress. But we have a very active group in that neighborhood that will advocate for us, as well as it splits the city and the county. Is there any thought process in lobbying for that project in the future a little bit more? I know Delarian had reached out to me. I just was wondering if that's even come across as one of the projects you guys are looking at.
It certainly could be, and that's something that we can talk with CHIPS about, of, really coming up with a strategy on, what the county's leading, what we can support, whether that's a direct LBR or, continuing working with Water Management District or DEP on some other opportunities, and to make sure that it's highlighted, to get, all the funding that's necessary to see it come to construction. But certainly, not anything that I'd be opposed to.
Okay, yeah, I'm always, if I get the chance to ask for money, I do, so.
Yeah, and the reason I said I think we need to be careful is obviously understanding the political climate, both in Florida and nationally. And Matt, as you know, many of the conversations we had when we were in DC, we had to clarify, what we were asking for wasn't a regulatory change, or additional regulations, that we were just trying to basically provide outreach and provide resources to do restoration and education. So I think we do need to be careful. But that being said, I'm comfortable with some level of advocacy. My suggestion would be that yourself and staff, if you see something, bring it to the board. We can make it an agenda item that, that we can discuss, and hopefully we will have time to be, well-versed on it, and then the board can vote. We may even have to vote on this portion. I don't know if we want that to be unanimous, or if we want it to be 2/3, it's like a supermajority or something like that. But I think we need to figure out what that looks like, and maybe that's something we can discuss at a later date. But and then if there's something that's, for whatever reason, how sometimes session gets in Tallahassee, if there's something that comes up that is for whatever reason extremely time sensitive, whether there's a requirement to hold an emergency board meeting, or how we handle that, or whether we have a couple of people designated as delegates to address it, I don't know. I say all that just for discussion's sake, just to say that we need to make sure we have some kind of policy we've created.
For sure, and your thought process is very much in alignment with, I think, mine, which is, again, we are non-regulatory, non-advocacy in the sense of some other organizations, but really a lot of what we do can inform policy decisions. And so that's really the reason I brought up this subject, is often asked, issues that we see in environmental permitting, for example. We've had issues in being able to propel living shoreline permitting. See, some cases can be easier to get a seawall permit than it is, a living shoreline permit. So if we can work with, legislative members or the state agencies to help inform that policy decision, that could be a good thing to advance, the mission as a whole. Certain things like that without, maybe taking a stance, for or against, or, overtly advocating for, XYZ policy. But what I would suggest is at the next board meeting between now and then, maybe the chairman and I can kind of come up with a policy recommendation of the board, just to give some guardrails to it. It hasn't caused any issues in the past, and just want to make sure that we're staying on the straight and narrow, kind of moving forward as we get additional requests, so that way we know generally what the appetite and direction of the board is.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman?
Well, I was just going to say, I just realized as you were talking, I may have inadvertently put us in a little bit of a tough position with regard to advocacy for policy, because by asking you to serve on the Land Development Code Task Force in Santa Rosa County, one could say that you're an extension of this board advocating for a policy change, and I just realized that. So one, just let me apologize to the board for, if anyone thinks that was improper, it wasn't meant to be. It was basically to say, take your expertise and help us in Santa Rosa County do something that would ultimately benefit the estuary program and the estuaries and our waterways. Go ahead, Mr. Cullen.
Well, I'm trying to process, 'cause, for example, let's just talk about Carpenter Creek. Obviously, that wasn't funded last year, right? one of Escambia County and one of our delegation requests was we went back and requested that again. That would be something I think would obviously be something that the board should send a letter in support because it was taken off. We went our commission voted to go back to do it again. You know, I don't know what, I think we know why it was taken off, but it should have probably been funded. But something like that, I think would be very appropriate for this board to send a letter of support for that project because it was already in the pipeline. I think that's what you're alluding to. Is that kind of what you're
I
asking?
think we're talking more about policy. So it's one thing, I think, for a legislative request. It's another thing if we're advocating for some significant policy change at the state or federal level with regards to a type of permitting being required or, you know, restrictions of vessels in certain areas or something like that. Because I know that came up with Congressman Petronas, you know, when we were sitting there talking. At one point, I think he was under the impression we were going to try to do something that was going to restrict people to be using their boats in our local waterways. And we're like, no, sir, that's not the case. We're not trying to restrict anyone's access to water. We're not trying to create any regulations whatsoever. We're just trying to make sure that, you know, oysters are rehabilitated, and we're doing living shorelines and increasing, resiliency efforts. And once we said that, once he fully understood what the program was about, he was very supportive. But I think it's more that type of legislation rather than just saying, hey, we have a project we want funded. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I just want to have clarity.
And that's where
I
it gets a little
understand.
sticky. I'm all for supporting any county or city or town's efforts in going out and getting some funding for a project. I'll be the first to sign on to help support that and help advocate for that in person. Vernon, do you have something?
Yes, and just to further what you were saying, Chairman, about the efforts on the policy side of the expertise of our staff related to items that we've already been working on a lot that are critical in this watershed. One thing that comes to mind that they'll see more and more of are the problems that we have with invasive species, where they may be able to actually input some information that would help with the statewide policy of how do we deal with this? What are we seeing that other people may not see, that they're going to be out there all the time and working with others in our local government areas. So that's where I see we could have a big impact, and probably along the lines of what you were thinking of how do we institute some parameters that would bring those type of scenarios back to the board for review, and then they could provide that kind of input back.
Thanks. I don't foresee there ever being a problem with the members of this board or the members of staff as it currently sits. I do worry about as things change over time, when none of us are here, maybe the executive staff is completely different, that somehow things go out of the realm of common sense and go too far one way or the other. You know, I think the worst thing that could happen is us have massive deregulation in our area, and I think overregulation could be just as bad and burdensome. So I'm glad to see that everyone has that same common sense approach here. So maybe we'll try to craft something we can bring back to the board and make sure that everyone is comfortable with something before we make a decision.
And just to clarify, so we're looking at what the parameters would be for the estuary program to essentially endorse asking for a new policy or asking to deregulate a policy. Is that correct?
I'd say it is on the policy front. I don't think there's any issues going back to the support on project funding and that sort of thing. That's a separate issue in my mind. I think the parameters that we would set is, you know, at what point does the program want to get engaged in certain aspects, and we can set those different maybe authority thresholds, so to speak, in terms of if we're just information, you know, providing information to an agency or to the legislature as a whole to inform their crafting of policy, that's one thing, versus if the board wants to take a direction on for or against XYZ policy. I would honestly stay away from the latter as much as we can and focus more on the information sharing side of things.
Well, and I'm just thinking on a local level. So right now, one of the things that my office is exploring is we're having a problem with larger vessels just dumping their sewage and not having it pumped out. So we're exploring ways on how to regulate that. Obviously, that impacts the health of our waters. So my hope would be that the estuary program would say, hey, this is needed, it's a problem based on this and this and this, and this is the impact that we can expect if we don't regulate it. So I think that there are projects out there that we could all get behind, but I do agree it needs to come to the board for a vote.
It's a great comment, Commissioner Hopperger, and this is another one that we put up to the state legislature. You folks may not know it, but it was derelict vessels, because the state regulation is very complicated. It's not like if you have a car in the middle of the road, we come tow it. You got to have FWC come out there. It's going to be 30 days. It takes a couple months to get a derelict vessel out. So we're pushing that. That was one of our legislative priorities in Escambia County that we're pushing forward to hopefully the state will look at. That would be something maybe you'd come back and ask the board if we have an interest in. You know, it's just another example of what you shared, but it goes to sewage as well, because there's out there dumping stuff all over the waterways and not helping the water quality.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, and I'll throw one other thing out separate from this board specifically. Everyone on this board is part of the community and part of a neighboring number of counties and cities and towns, and we probably, I know, in small talk occasionally we talk about what each individual community is doing, and then we look at what we see in the media, but I don't know if we have a formal way to do it, but maybe if we figured out a way to either have our administrators and town managers or some conduit to make sure that we all understand what each other's priorities are. Because I've had this conversation with the mayor, and we were trying to figure out, Mayor Pensacola, of how to assemble a team to make sure that we're very consistent, much like where we have, the legislative delegation has to be very consistent in representing the Panhandle of Florida in our area because they are outnumbered. I think we should have the ability to do the same thing and find ways that so you're concerned about that. That's a concern that Santa Rosa County would have too. Maybe not to the same extent, because we don't have as much for bayous and things like that where that could be done more. But I think anytime we can be a force multiplier for each other, I think we should be doing that. So maybe if we can figure out some way to make sure that communication is there, so that if Commissioner Smith or myself are in Tallahassee, are having conversation with, Representative Salzman, or Representative Andrade, or Boyles, or Senator Gates, or something like that, we can all be very consistent so that they see the message that we all believe in the same thing. I think the likelihood to get the best outcome would be better that way. So I don't know. I'll go back to our administration and try to figure out if there's some way to make that more functional. Matt, does that give you? Is it clear as mud?
That's all good. I personally wanted to just have a discussion of the board because, this is something that we kind of get pulled into every now and then, and I just want to make sure that I'm adhering to general board guidance. But we'll get together and then broach the subject again at the November board meeting.
Yeah, last thing this board needs to be doing is putting you in a tough spot as executive director and then making you feel like you're walking a plank, and then you got to be accountable to us. That's not fair to you or staff. All right, we'll move on to committee updates. What do we got?
We don't have any committee updates today.
No committee updates. All right. Any updates from the fellow members of the board about anything? Go ahead, Woody.
Something out here just because I'm excited about it, because it's been a year plus. City of Orange Beach, as part of the Living Shoreline Grant or cost share program, we had a greenhouse that was part of that grant, and that is under construction now, should be built out in the next couple of weeks. So we're excited about that, to get it up and running. It's been a long, hard road with the manufacturer we selected and everything, but it's exciting. I was out with the crews this morning, so just want to throw that out there. I know Santa Rosa is working on basically the same setup. So hopefully it wasn't as difficult of a process on their end, but that's exciting for us just because of the program and to get that up and running and get it stocked. So
You've got a big ribbon cutting at the end of the week too.
Oh yeah, Perdido Islands.
The Perdido Islands ribbon cutting is taking place this Friday. great time to do that during National Estuaries Week. But as Bailey was talking about earlier with the planting event, the city, the Nature Conservancy, Moffett Nickel have been working on this project years in the making, and it is finally wrapping up, and will be a great opportunity to celebrate that coastal restoration project. It's looking real good.
Yeah, I am. I'm really excited about that. It'll be, it's at 11 on Friday. Is that right? 11 o'clock on Friday at Cobalt. Everybody's invited. Bring
Okay,
friends,
you can just
family.
pop in, right?
They actually rented out the entire restaurant. So we've got the whole facility out back, and it provides a great view for the new islands. And just to build on that, we nixed the presentation from the agenda today because Moffett Nickel couldn't be here, but we'll kick it to the next meeting, and then hopefully we'll be able to get on the boat if anybody's interested and actually go, tour the islands and look at everything. It's impressive. What's gonna be cool is just for the ribbon cutting on Friday is just the number of people that were involved, and everybody's gonna be there. It'll be fun. It'll be really, really cool. So we're excited.
No, I saw that and I was like, I can't RSVP for anything because I never know what's going on from 1 minute to the next right now. And I know this week right here is just a crazy week, and then every week in the advance is on the horizon is crazy. So I saw that and I was like, man, that'd be a great place to be on a Friday. So.
Yeah, to that end, I'll be out of town through Tuesday, but so I can't attend any of these things. But I would encourage all of you, if given the opportunity to stop by the Seafood Festival at some point, please do so. And if you can, stop by their tent. And I know the last couple of years when I've stopped by, it was always interesting. One is to see everyone doing such great work out there, talking to the people. But it's also interesting as a board member to be able to sit there and listen to some of the people that walk up and see how they interact, and throw your 2 cents in and kind of show your support for the team and the staff, but also let the constituents and the residents know how important the program is. And you can eat some seafood while you're there. One last chance for public comment. Come on down. All right.
October 15th, 6 to 8, at the Santa Rosa County Auditorium. And I really feel bad because I forgot to thank Christopher Lindy, who helped me get that settled and registered. So thank you. October 15th, 6 to 8, Santa Rosa County Auditorium.
I gotta say,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, it's more for Matt. Who's taking donations for the silent auction? You didn't mention it, so I was, I'm gonna donate something, but I don't.
What was the question?
For the equestrian night out, last year we were asked to give something for the silent auction.
Oh, right. Yes, thank you. Wasn't tracking before. Yes, in addition to the to getting people there, any opportunities for silent auction items is greatly appreciated. Commissioner Kohler is coming in again with Saints tickets. I don't know where the seats are located this
I may
year.
have to pay you to take them this year, but I'll still.
It's a good birthday gift for my dad. I think we're up to around 20 items currently, somewhere in that ballpark.
Is it you or Logan? I'll send the email to what I want to
Me,
do.
Bailey, the whole team.
Okay.
The whole team is involved, but send it to me. We're all working on it. Yep.
All right.
And then going back to your point about the sewage, DEP has a program called the Clean Marina Program and Clean Vessel Act grants, and it's funding to put in vacuums at the marinas. And my person has retired that worked there, but I can get a new contact for you. Yes, ma'am.
Daryl, if you don't mind, send that over to us as well in Santa Rosa. That'd be great. Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for the reminder on the silent auction items. I know I mentioned something to you that I think might be pretty cool and relative to the estuary program, so I'll try to get that knocked out myself with an item. All right, anything else from the board members?
You got a seagrass cutter? Dad
It is
jokes.
not a piece of equipment, but it is a really cool piece of art that I actually wanted to buy myself, but I'll buy one and donate.
Chips, are you going to outbid everyone this year as usual?
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here and for all the hard work. And thank you, staff. We're adjourned.